Welcome to my weekly stream about the Uno platform. My name is Jérôme Laban. I'm the CTO of the open source project Uno platform, and I'm spending about an hour every week, talking about the Uno platform and what we've been doing, and probably this week talking a little bit about the Uno 4.6 that's been released about 2 weeks ago. And there weren't actually no streams last week because there was .conf, so many good things happening at that time, and many announcements, and yours truly was also presenting a session at that time, so I'm going to be talking about that as well quickly, because we released a small sample application about this. And we are also going to be talking about two topics today. The first one being the diagnostics of a memory leak in WebAssembly. I'm going to be showing you and validating that everything works. Because of .NET 7, everything has moved around. So we're going to be seeing if everything works properly, as well as taking a look at an issue that was raised a bit back, which is about having the support for events for styles that are placed inside of top-level resource dictionaries. So we're going to be taking a look at all of this. Now, with regards to Uno Platform 4.6, and I see that McNett is here, Arlo, Sasha, our CMO, is here as well, and Homer Olara, which is here as well, here as well. Welcome. So Uno 4.6, Uno Platform 4.6. So we released quite a few things in there. The most prominent one being the .NET 7 support for Visual Studio, .NET 7 support and Visual Studio 17.4, which were both released during .NET Conf. And we've been contributing and providing support for this for quite a while, but now it's available completely, and also available as part of the mobile support. So that means that you have the support for everything .NET 7 available for you. There's only one specific issue that's still standing for mobile, and if you're running, if you're using 17.4 and the latest builds, there's one issue with Android, which is about building AOT apps using Xamarin Android. So if you're building this, you may be having issues that looks like this. Java type is generated more than once. There's a workaround for it for now, but Microsoft is working on it. So there's the PR that's somewhere down there that is talking about this. So stay tuned for updates on that topic. Of course, upgrading to .NET 7, if you've been following us, many things have been happening since the beginning, and we've been working on the .NET 7 support, especially for WebAssembly, for the past 6 to 7 months now. We're on the first previews that were out, and over time it's increased the performance significantly, so 20% to 50%, and in many cases it's related to the use of WebAssembly exceptions and AOT improvements. That is something that is particularly important when dealing with applications that are performance hungry. So take a look at that. We updated our playground and Uno Gallery as well with newer features. Oh, no audio. No audio. That's interesting. There's supposed to be audio somewhere. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so Sasha. Okay, so, so if you have no audio, it's probably you can. Sasha, you have no audio. That's probably on your end. Because I was seeing the bar charts here, the bar graph with the mic showing up properly. So if it was not working, I would have had other problems. At least I've set up the support for sub captioning, so you should be able to you should be having sub captioning available as well. But let me check just to be sure that on my end I'm not having this as well, because otherwise it's gonna be troubling. Maybe it's an update of yeah, no, that works properly. I can hear myself. Okay, so there's that, and also so in .NET 7 there's the new API, so JS import and JS export. Talked about that in my session. in .NET Conf, and that one's particularly important. And I'm not going to be talking about those today, but probably next week, because we're probably going to have made progress on that. But it's for the interop itself, it has a times two performance improvement there, just because it's using all sorts of fancy new features of C# and .NET. So that's going to be good for WebAssembly features. Another good thing is library assets. Library assets is all about making sure that you have your own libraries. You can have NuGets or projects that are in your solution that are containing assets like WAV file or bitmaps or whatever, anything that you want to put in there that is packaged with your NuGet package or your project, and that flow through to the application being deployed. That was not possible before, and one of the use cases that we want to introduce probably in the next version is going to be fonts support. So probably creating separate packages that contain fonts and that you can include into your applications, and then they get updated as they would like any other NuGet package, and without having to add those as part of the project, which is a problem at this point. So especially because we're updating the fonts regularly with new glyphs. So there's that for library assets. There was a feature that was quite often referenced and requested. The other one is support for SVGs. So SVGs, we had support partially. That was available mainly for WebAssembly, and now we're adding it for all platforms. So on the web, it's using the plain SVG support because it's using underlying HTML support for it. But for the other targets, we're using an SVG renderer, so we're rendering that to Skia and providing that to all the other targets that are available. So if you want to render an SVG, that's going to be your go-to feature. Of course, you can use it using the SVG image source or directly using an SVG target using the assets if you want to have that in your application. Android 13 support, small feature, but it's just something that we added support for. And then it's mainly for Xamarin. For .NET 6 and 7, it's already present. And finally, the Bootstrapper 7. So all of this is adding all bunch of features that we created for along the way during the past year between .NET 6 and 7. And one of the recent features is the support for obfuscation and custom extension, and that one is actually particularly important if you are in a let's say in an enterprise that has strict rules for security and things like that, and they're doing deep inspection into the queries that you're making, particularly because you have if you have a local antivirus, and it may cause issues because UNO packages binaries as part of .clr files, but there's always the header that is a Windows P file, so it may be detected as possible virus, so it gets blocked out. So what UNO is providing, and that's something that the Blazor team is considering as well, which is obfuscating with a basic XOR. I wouldn't say encryption because it's not really an encryption, so very basic obfuscation. And that allows the files to go through the wire and end up being analyzed but detected as just garbage because it's obfuscated. So one of the things like that. We've also added support for static assets. I'm going to talk about that afterwards, and threading support, which I'm going to talk as well after. SIMD and new layout binary. So if you want to have those details, just take a look. So server support, that one is actually quite interesting, and it's something that we've added support for to map what Blazor is doing, and basically, and it's because Blazor is providing it as well, so basically piggybacking into the feature so that we get access to that directly. And the idea for this is that you can have the same project, the server project, and your app, so an API project, let's say, a web API project. I'm gonna get there. A web API project that's hosting in the same that's hosting the WebAssembly app. And what that does is that it allows you to avoid having all sorts of issues related to cross-site security concerns. So you basically publish the application as well as the API side that's providing the content in a single go. So it makes it easier to work with. And that enables scenarios like being able to host a WebAssembly app inside of Teams, which is for now supported only in the web browser. So if you have to open Teams in a web browser for that to work, but we know that there's going to be improvements there so that it gets that the WebAssembly gets enabled when running inside of the desktop application. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be fun. And a few other things like expand pathless casting, a few things that we worked on during past streams, as well as explain typecasting, as well as past streams. Now, let's go back to one more feature, and that one is threading support. And threading support is so cool. I'm going to show you the demo again. So this is a demo. You can go to that link. And it's basically an application that will allow you to see what a browser does with threading. So it's basically a ray tracer. So if I just add a new thread, so you can see that I have a light that turns around a few spheres. And then if I add a new one, then I have a second thread that's rendering the same thing at the same speed. And interesting thing is that by default, and that's what JavaScript is able to do at this point, it's single threaded. So if you want to do additional work, you have to go on another thread and do some additional work. But the thing is that you have to do message passing between the two. But what's interesting here is that because it's WebAssembly, the memory is shared between threads. So that means that what the renderer is doing can be passed as a reference to the main thread. So it's basically referencing a pointer in memory, and then the application can take the content and show it on the UI thread. So that's how it can do that kind of thing. So just be careful when you're bumping the number of threads. It can go pretty high, and if your machine doesn't have I think it's probably 100. Doesn't have 100 CPUs, then you may start to have issues. So just so you know, and you can see here that in here it's actually rendering and using all the CPUs. You can see that I started the app, and my CPUs here are actually doing something. So that's the cool thing. So that's what's happening with the threading. There are a few things around support for this. Being able to do threading requires to be in secure environments. So just be aware that if you're enabling this, you may have a few things around SSO or getting access to separate resources. Like for instance, this image here, we had to make some changes in the server that serves that image so that it has a specific set of headers. So if you take a look at the image that's being served here in the network tab, where is it? Logo, GitHub logo here. So if I look at the headers, you have to have the cross-origin resource policy set in a specific way. We're using cross-origin here because we don't care about what's being sent from that specific server or back and forth. But just so you know, there are a few things that need to be addressed there to make sure that the security environment is handled properly. So there's that. And so that's the cool thing about the threading. So let us know, try it out and take a look at what that does. And you can see here that there are performance improvements that need to be made. For instance, you can see here that it's actually loading images one by one. Probably not a good idea. So there are a few things that we need to handle properly. So there's that. So that's it for the threading. So I see there's a question. So Jerome, I have a question for the WebAssembly that Uno supports. Is it the same as the experimental WebAssembly that was talked about in .NET Conf? So yes, it is. And the interesting thing here is that the Uno bootstrapper, and I actually changed the documentation about this a while back. If you go to the documentation here in the, I think it's over there, tooling, WebAssembly bootstrapper, and in the bootstrapper down there, if I think correctly, there you go. It says, I think I forgot to update the documentation here. So let's go take a look at the original documentation. And the documentation is probably available at the end. Oh, I thought I updated it completely. It looks like I'm missing an update. So the idea is that, oh no, it's there. No, it's probably just because I forgot to change the 7x dev. Okay, so I'll probably change that. But yes, the idea is that we're using the .NET Runtime branch 7.0. So it's using 70100. So the same binary that was there that was released at the .NET Conf. And the experimental part of it is pretty much not experimental for us. It's just if you enable threading or SIMD or things like that, then it becomes the same experimental stuff that Microsoft has been providing as part of a separate workload. Now, the reason that they're saying it's marked as experimental and downloaded as experimental is that it's two separate packages that you're downloading when you're installing everything, and it's not something that we have to do because we can change the parameters there, and it just ends up being what we need completely. So you can enable threading or disable threading. It's going to be the same runtime that's going to be used, just compiled differently, but it's going to be transparent to you. So there you go. Now, of course, well, let us know if you have anything, if you have a success or any kind of issues, let us know so that we can take a look. So I'm probably gonna have to fix that part because it's not definitely that good. We're not there. Oh, and finally, we have .NET 8 builds already that will be provided very soon. They're still in a private. I think I don't know. I don't remember if they're published or not, but they should be around there very soon so that we can start developing in it. And there's one specific feature that's going to be very interesting. It's they call that the JITterpreter, and the .NET team has been working on that very cool feature where it's going to be possible to have some kind of an AOT-ish jitting. That's pretty cool. So they're going to be generating a WebAssembly at runtime by working through a what is it called? I would say a smaller known feature of WebAssembly. So it's going to be cool. It's about to be merged. It's been accepted or approved a few days ago. So we'll see where that goes. Okay, so let's go for memory leaks. So that feature. Actually, it's a discussion. So that discussion was about someone that posted something on, I think it was it was an issue. So it's a memory leak. And what I want to know is it something that we have an issue with, or is it something that is completely unrelated? So we're going to be troubleshooting what is going to happen with all this and try to figure out if we actually have a memory problem. So let's download the issue here, the repro, because the gentleman here or person here was kind enough to give us a full repro. So let's go take a look at what this is doing. It's a small app with Windows only. Very good. So let's see. I think I have the newest version of Visual Studio somewhere. Let's go and let's live dangerously like every time and see if the new version of Visual Studio fares well. So far for my test, it's been so far, so that's pretty cool. So we'll see if that continues. Okay, so let's take a look at that solution. What does it have? So we have I don't know if it's going to be doing. Okay, let's do. Okay, so it's the standard project. Nothing specific here. And so it's using 4.5. It's a Windows project. Very good. Okay, so let's take a look at what that solution is doing. So what we're going to be doing is launch the app, try to see how it works, and then we're going to try to enable the memory profiling and try to see how we can troubleshoot all this and see if it's an actual issue, if it's a behavior that we can alter, or something different. So let's see. We have a main page. And that main page is doing a list test control that is coming from here. A few commands output text, account, total memory. So it's good. It's showing the memory, which is good. So it's using, okay, what's the total memory coming from? Total memory is GC total memory with forceful collection, which is fine for now. Okay, so let's see what that does. So it's still using 331, so we may want to upgrade to latest so we can benefit from everything else. But let's start the application as it was designed by the original developer. So here, okay, so it looks pretty high. That looks pretty high. So let's go take a look at the task manager somewhere in there. Browser task manager. What do we have here? What's the memory size that we're using? Okay, so that's fairly large already. That looks unrealistic. So we're probably having another kind of problem. So maybe it's related to some memory allocation that's done by the app. So let's take a look. So it's doing some allocation somewhere. So let's see. So we're adding events. We're adding items here. New item, an item. What is an item? Okay, so an item is allocating 100 megabytes. Okay, it's allocating 100 megabytes every time. Good. Okay, so that explains what happens here. Now, what's interesting is that the default memory consumption from the get-go seems high, but it looks, let's see, what does the memory look like when we start the application by default? Oh, no, not that one. So we have browser task manager. Okay, 200. Okay, so that's good. Now, if we do add 100 megabyte. Okay, so the memory jumped to 300 at a second, 400, 500. Okay, so it jumps up. So there's a difference between the two, but those are sometimes expected. So we can probably go take a look at the memory, the actual memory consumption. There's an API for that we added recently, for which the actual native allocated memory for the browser is provided. Maybe there's duplication somewhere that happens, so that could explain this. So know that the GC is doing its own stuff there, so it may be behaving differently. Okay, so that's the interesting part. Now, if I clear, what happens? So the thing is that if clear is not running a GC, it's not going to be very interesting. But we can see that the memory doesn't go down. So that means that for some reason, some of the objects that are bound to here are not cleared properly or not allocated properly. So what we're going to do, I'm going to try to find out where that comes from. So let's go to .NET 7 first. So we're going to be bumping everything up to .NET 7 so we can use the latest tooling. Let's go for NuGet here. And we're going to be upgrading to latest stable. There's no need to go for the rest. So, and we're going to be adding also the memory consumption for the actual memory consumption for WebAssembly, not just what the GC is providing. So the total memory is only the total memory that's consumed for the managed side. It doesn't tell you what's below. So we're going to try to figure that one out. Okay, so we'll go to 4619, and then we're going to be taking a look at what is happening. So if we want to enable memory profiling, we need to go to the Bootstrapper documentation, and there's a section about this. Actually, let's go to Uno. It's going to be easier. We go to tooling, bootstrapper, and then there's below features, and it talks about memory troubleshooting, but I think it's more about profiling than it is about troubleshooting here. Where did I put this? Profiling. There you go. CPU profiling and memory profiling. So if you want to profile the memory here, you have to add this one, which is a property that enables the memory log profiler. So let's add this, and we're gonna browse the documentation a bit more afterwards. There you go. So let's start a build for this. And so how that works is that there are a few additional hotkeys that are enabled when you're creating an application that does memory profiling. There's Shift-Alt-H that does snapshot. So it's basically a heap snapshot. So you create a specific snapshot to see, let's say, I've allocated many things, and then I clear the memory, then I create another snapshot, then allocate again, then clear, then create another snapshot, then I can diff between snapshots to understand where the memory's gone and why it's being kept somewhere, if we have an issue or something. So maybe it's on our end, maybe it's on your end, maybe it's I don't know. So that's what we're gonna try to figure out. There's a few additional things that can be adjusted, but they're not particularly useful here. There you go. People that are having fun with YouTube and sending some spam. Okay, so let's see, did our build start? So it takes a bit longer for a few reasons, but mostly it's because that we have to link in the log profiler, so it takes a bit more time. If we take a look at the build, we'll see that we have a new apps that's started. Okay, so let's take a look now. So just to verify that it works, there's a there's additional logging that's supposed to be happening. So we can see here log profiler save hotkey. So there are a few new things that have been added. Now, if I do Alt-Shift-H, it should say recording memory profiler hipshot. So it says file size. So we have 8 megabytes of content. Now, let's do a few things. I'm adding. I take a hipshot again. I clear. Add again, maybe. Well, let's do that again. Clear, heap shot, and do it again. Let's do it multiple times. There you go. So now that we're done, we can save the profile using the Control Alt P, and then we'll save a file that you can download and open using the Xamarin Profiler. So let's see if it works properly. It should be. It worked the last time I did. And it works. There you go. Easy peasy. So, so what we're having here is the memory allocations for the application that have been happening along the way. You have a set of snapshots that are here that tell you what's being new, what's being done. You can see here that nothing is being removed, which is a problem. We can see that there's a lot of persistent memory. And that's a problem. So we're going to try to figure what's been happening with those allocations that have stayed in between. So let's see if I look at it's supposed to be doing this. We can see here that if I look at the number of items that are there, there's a system byte, which are likely all the big numbers that we had. And now we have to find where those are coming from. So that's where those are coming from. And we're going to try to find the root. So if I click on the last, let's say, maybe not the last one. Let's say the first one that I created. So it was 43 seconds. No, sorry. It's for some reason it's not sorted properly. So for the first one that was created was large, was at 30 seconds after the start of the application, and we spent about 15 seconds just clicking around. So the oldest one is that one. So now we're going to try to figure out the roots of this one, of this particular reference. So stack trace is not particularly important, but we can see here that it actually is held onto by all of this. And what we can see here is that it's the virtualization system that's doing something interesting. So we can see here that it's held onto dependency property details store, property details store, solid color brush. There's a few things that are there, and the dependency property details and others. So it's then it's held by this view item, which is itself stored in a virtualizing panel layout line, and which is inside a double-ended queue, which is in a virtualizing panel layout. So we don't have this, but we can go take a look. But it's likely that this is stored in a caching system. And if we take a look at this, so it's a performance feature. Now, what may happen is that if the object is manipulated explicitly by the tooling, so by the code, and if you set something to the object and then it stays there because it's not being prepared properly, then it will keep what you've assigned to it in memory because it's supposed to be there. So Windows is not necessarily doing this altogether, but somehow it's doing parts of it, and if you're setting content directly, it's going to stay there. So let's go take a look at that double-ended queue that we have in the item stack panel layout in Uno. So I have, do I have Uno available here? I think I had it here. Okay. So I'm going to be opening Uno in Net 7. So Net 7 is all about opening for the Net 7 WebAssembly only target. So if it's your first time here, what I'm doing is I'm opening the Uno solution using what is called a targeting override, so that we only open what's needed and not the whole thing, because it's a bit too big for Visual Studio. Even though it works, but the memory blows up, so it's not particularly needed. So when you've selected something here, you can take a look at the top here. So Net 7 is not available here because I copied the file. Let me just take the original one so that it looks correctly. So this is the original file that's supposed to be there. Okay, so when you have Net 7 for WebAssembly and Skia, you need to open the solution filter that's called Uno UI WASM only. And then I'm going to be restoring that file to set that it's to go to Net 7. There you go. And we're opening the solution filter for WASM only. And then we're going to go and take a look at what the implementation does for what is this? Double-ended queue for virtualizing layout panel. So we're going to go to item stack panel layout. Stack panel layout. Oh, there you go. Even with a typo. Come on, Visual Studio. Okay, so that one is a partial file, so we're going to be probably finding that in a different file. So there's going to be a double-ended queue somewhere. We have a generator, DQ for item, so probably somewhere in there. So it's item stack panel layout. So let me find that one out. So there's a generator. Could be a separate item. Where do I see a double-ended queue? It's interesting. So we have storage generators, not useful. We have the list view, threading, Uno UI control, not that one. We have item stack panel. This one, I would have thought it's in another one, so it could be implemented in a different virtualizing panel managed. Okay, we have DQ here, DQ line, probably somewhere in there. Okay, there you go, materialized lines. Okay, so we have a materialized line, and it's probably related to the fact that we have lines that are stored here and not necessarily removed, so it causes that kind of trouble. Remove from front. It may still be an issue though. it may still be an issue because we're supposed to be removing that content when the list is actually cleared. So we have a clear line. It's supposed to be removed, but maybe there's something else that's not working properly, and that breaks completely. But still, it may happen that the content is not materialized properly. We have list view item, or maybe we do have a second double-ended queue that is storing those items as a generator. But it may be that we have a problem with materialized lines where we're not clearing the content. But still, so it's something that we're doing as part of list view, and we're going to take a look at how this is done for the implementation of that list view. So so the way it's implemented here in the XAML, we have okay, so the rows here, we have an item template with a binding here, so it's good. It's doing it's doing the right thing. And if I go back to the list view item, it's stored as a data context by the looks of it. Yeah, it looks like a data context because it's stored inside of a list view item dependency object store. So it's done properly. So it would look like that for some reason we're not clearing the data context, and that's a problem. That's a bit of a problem because it's not supposed to be staying there after the control has been cleared. So when we're clearing the content, if we take a look at the view model, we have an items.clear, which is an observable collection. So it's supposed to be removing all the items from the collection here. That's available at the top. So it's an observable collection. So that's supposed to be good enough for removing the content, but it's not doing it. Okay, so what that means is that we're going to have to figure out where that's coming from. So what it looks like at this point is that we do have some type of memory leak that's coming from Uno, because the double-ended queue here is keeping content that it's not supposed to be keeping. Now, is it because the virtualizing line is not cleared? Could be. Maybe it's an implementation and an issue with the implementation of the DQ, the double-ended queue. Could be as well. So we're gonna have to figure what's happening here. So if we take a look at the double-ended queue quickly, if we actually clear the content, what happens when we clear the items? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that is very interesting. So I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, but when we're clearing the double-ended queue, we're not removing the items from the list. We're just keeping the array as it was. So if there was content in it, we're not removing the content. So what we can do is try to figure out if we add and then remove the items, maybe that could help. So instead of doing clear, we're just going to be removing the items one by one and see if that helps. So let's try that again. So we can remove this. Let's start again. So let's say, so I'm taking an initial snapshot and let's try again. So add again, a few more, and then we remove content by selecting the items. And that's pretty much it. Let's go for take another heap shot, and then we take another profile that we're going to take a look at. Now we're going to try to determine if the issue really is with the fact that the items are not removed from the double-ended queue, which looks like it. It looks like a pretty bad bug with regards to how memory is managed. But we're going to try to figure this one out with the memory management here. So we're on the second snapshot, and we have items from the 12th here. If we look at the references, what do we still have? Okay, so now it's different because it's not stored the same way. So if you see here, The stack is different. So we have an item that is stored in dependency object store. We have the grid. We have content presenter, object store, and things like that. So a few things that are interesting here. But what you can see here is that the item is stored in a framework template pool, which is completely different from the stack that was done before. So what that means is that what we're doing inside of Uno when we're dealing with list views is that we're using the concept of framework template pooling. So we're to avoid recreating objects every time. We provide a way for you to be able to, well, it's not for you, but it's the framework that does that. But the idea is that we're storing the framework templates. So it can be data template, items template, or control template. And then when a control asks for the same template again, we're providing that template another time. Now, the side effect of this is that it can cause the memory to go up temporarily when the items are stored. Now, the interesting thing here is that we're having the item being stored in the dependency property details here, which is not supposed to happen. And that is particularly interesting because that is supposed to be, when a control is recycled in the template pool, it's not supposed to be holding onto its data context. So we may be having another type of issue here. So we're going to try to troubleshoot. So we have two things. So let's build the application again. But this time we're going to try to disable the framework template pooling to see if the issue is still there. So to disable the template pooling, we can do something like this. So in the app here at the beginning, we have a feature configuration class. Well, let's see, feature configuration. There you go. And we have, I don't know if it's called that way, framework template is pooling enabled, and you set that to false. What that does is that it will completely disable all the framework template pooling for all the whole app. So we're just going to be disabling the, so just to validate the point, let's see first if it does. So we're just going to be building without the profiler because it takes a bit more time. So we're going to see if the behavior is different. If it's not, then we're going to go again into the memory profiler to see if we have something different. So memory is this way. So if we add items and then we remove items. Okay, so the thing is that we have, the GC is not passing. So we can't say, we can't know if the memory is actually updated. So we're going to do two things. We're going to add a new button that is going to be doing some GC. And then we're going to be a bit aggressive about it. We're going to be duration 2 and forced optimization if it does anything. Where are the commands here? There we go. We have the GC command, and we're going to bind that to action object. There you go. Useful. And then we're going to bind that to our list item control at the top with an additional button. Which is going to be called GC command. Okay, and we're going to add something else, which is going to be called, we're going to call that physical memory for what it's worth, because it's what is reported. We're going to call physical used memory for the time being. And we're going to add a new property here. Probably a duplicate of the total memory one that's here. Physical use memory. It's the same here. Okay, and I think we're updating that one down below. Okay, there you go. So for Uno, we have another feature that's called a memory manager and physical use memory manager in Windows.system, and we have app memory usage, and that one is going to different places. And if we let it change that, so well, it's in Uno, but it's not that version, so it won't tell you that it's not implemented, but that's how it is. And we're gonna do something like this. And that will do just fine. Okay. There you go. Okay, so it's going to show two values, and we have to show that one actually. So let's go and show that version as well. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so physical use memory. So now we have disabled. We have that, so we can do the update. And just I don't recall if this is called an update stats. Oh, it's done. It's done after doing the operations. Okay. I probably should be having done that in the GC as well. Okay, so let's move that to a method that's going to be called GC. Okay. Going to be updating stats. Definitely not static method. Okay, so let's try again. Okay, so if we add multiple times, so you can see that the memory is actually different. So the allocated memory below is that large, and the total reported memory is close. It's actually closer. So if we take a look at the memory that's reported by the browser task tool, it's probably going to be closer. Yeah, so there's an 80 megabyte difference, but that one is probably accounted by the JavaScript memory. So that memory is actually reported from the WebAssembly memory space, not the whole tab memory consumption. So if we remove content, actually clear is not doing anything. So let's start again. We adding a few items, removing those items, and then GC. So GC is not doing anything. So we're definitely having another kind of problem because so you can see that something's moving, but the items are not removed properly. So we can see that the behavior is not the right one. So there was a test that was said about the fact that if we use an items control, it may behave differently. But the thing is that at that point we have selected items, so we can't use it that way. So that won't work. So definitely we do have a problem in Uno where the memory in here is not removed properly. So it's supposed to be removed properly when the items from the list view are recycled, and that we can try by enabling a bit more logging to see what happens in the list view. So to do this, we go to our app here, and we're going to add a new filter, change the debugging level, and we're going to go to Microsoft UI XAML, and then controls, then probably just list view. I think it's called, oh, it's list view, but it's not going to tell much. So let's see what kind of items we can get. So we have the item stack panel. Let's go with the item stack panel first. Maybe probably a bit of logging there. Let's take a look. And then we're going to go with the list view as well. List view. And list view base. Let's check for the 3 as well. Okay, so let's see what we get for the logging here. Okay, so we should be having a bit more information. So we have some information, but it's not particularly important here. So it's probably not the right one. So we're in Microsoft XAML. So let's see if we have another type of control that gives some logging here. Manage item stack panel. No, not that one. No, that one is not logging. Item stack panel, not logging as well. So let's see what we do have in list view base, maybe. So we have the virtualizing item layout. So that one's probably having a bit more logging, I would guess. No, no logging as well. Searching the right one. Adding. Ah, there you go, some log. Okay, so the one we want to get is the virtualizing panel layout. Let's see if this one has more logging. So I wonder if some of you that are watching, do you use logging? So the logging that we're providing as part of the Uno platform to troubleshoot if there are some issues, or is it something that's completely new or useless? Let me know. Okay, so I'm adding an item. Do I get something interesting here? I'm not getting anything. So maybe I have some other trouble with the logging. I set some logging here. Visualizing panel layout. So let's see, what do we have? Unloaded is supposed to be showing a few things here. It's supposed to be showing a lot more content that we're seeing. So there's probably something else that's not working here. So we're in debug. We see warnings here. So maybe it's caused by this one. Could be an ordering issue. So let's see. Or maybe it's because of the default level. And there you go. Haha. Okay, so it's probably because I didn't have all the loggings enabled here. So debug logs are in verbose mode. Okay, good. Now, if I add an item, I get a lot of content. Good. Get a range overrides and estimation panels and things. Now, if I click remove, we have cache limit. We have estimated panel extent. Do I have removal here? No, there's no removal here that's available. That's going to be telling us what everything's done. Now, the other thing that happens is that when we're in a list view, so in list view base, we have prepare. We have prepare. Oh, it's actually going to be in list view item. We have container prepare for item. We have container item. We have container clear for item. Things like that. So it's events that are supposed to be sent from items control here. And do we have logging here? No, that doesn't look like we do. So when we're removing items from the content, we're supposed to be clearing a few things, including the content property and a few other features, a few other properties. And the data context is supposed to go away as well, but it looks like for some reason it is not going away. So we could what could we do to figure this one out the faster way? So what could we do? We could do a custom control. Let's do a custom control, and we're going to be showing what's happening today to the data context. Let's create a new one. Not that one. Oh, that is new. It's a faster way to create templates. That is new to 17.4s. Oh, show compact view. What does it do? Wow. Okay, so it's not what I wanted, but anyways, interesting. We're gonna have to figure this one out and see what it does. Okay, so I want a user control, which I don't have here, but let's create a page. Doesn't change that much. I'm gonna call it my control. My control here, and so I'm going to change that to user control. My control, and inside I'm just going to be doing the same thing that I'm doing here, which is showing the data context with ID, but instead of showing the full content, so I'm removing the namespace, which is not useful. So let's see, WinUI one, I selected the wrong one. And in the list item here, instead of using a text block, I'm going to be using my control. So I'm going to be using the local my control, and we should be having the same result. Oh, it says view here. Okay, so I'm not having the right namespace. It's view. Okay, so there you have it. And what we should be showing as well is what's inside. Well, let's actually put in my control. We're just going to be putting a background to content just to be sure, so that it looks like we actually changed something. What did I break? Blank page 1 doesn't exist. Yes, it does not. Okay, so I add items, they're yellow. Good. Okay, so now we have our control. So now what we want to know is, so I'm going to be removing those because they're not useful. What we want to know is if the data context is actually changed. So, and we're going to be doing this by taking a look at the logs, because we can't see if the data context is being removed after the control has been removed. So we're going to change this. So in here, we're going to say, we're going to take the hash code of the instance, good enough for what we want to have. And just to discriminate between multiple controls. And we say data context get hash code. Okay, so let's see what that prints. So if I add an item, I see that we have my controls view item. That's good. And if I remove the item, nothing. Okay, so definitely not good. That control is supposed to be removing the content, and it's definitely not removing it. So we have all the items that are actually added properly, but it's definitely not removed. So there should be something happening here that says that our content should be removed. It's definitely not removed. So we must have broken something recently, because that was supposed to be working previously. We have a cleanup. So we have a lot of things that are happening here with a cleanup and saying that something should be happening. So what we can do, and to make it easier to debug, is that this is supposed to be breaking the same way when we're using Skia backends. So what we're going to do is just create a new actually not doing that way. And we're going to go to the terminal and we're going to do a new app that has the same name for now. We're going to do .NET New Uno app, and we're going to call it wasm tests, wasm release test. And we're just going to copy and paste the Skia project so that we can add it to that solution. So we are here. I'm going to take the GTK project and we're going to paste it here. Let's add it again. Skia GTK. So we're going to make sure that we have the same problem. And if we do, that's going to make it easier to debug. Probably going to be able to put some breakpoints in there once we do have an updated version for it. Let's see, what do we have? So there we go. So add items. So we can see that memory is falling here, but that's expected. So if we remove items, we can see that the memory is not going down as well, which is good. So that means that the issue is available on both ends. So that means that we can reproduce it easier. Okay, so to troubleshoot that quickly, so we have about 10 minutes or so to see where we can go with this. And we're actually in the right branch, so that's very good. So let's go back. We're going to take the last version of that branch specifically. And to do that, we're going to be doing the same thing that we do for the rest, which is just bring back that branch. If you take a look, there's an updated version. I don't know where it is here. Let's see it here. Was probably updated a bit back. So let me take that version. So it's generated. I don't see it here. That's interesting. It could be that we have a generation issue, so it may have not the latest version. So it's called. We're going to be resetting that branch. Actually, you could probably go directly from here. Probably going to be easier. So then convert, and that branch is, what's the latest update for this branch? The 19th. Okay, so it's, yeah, it's probably a problem. We do have a problem somewhere in there where it doesn't update properly. So we're going to have to do some changes afterwards, or that's interesting because it's supposed to be updated. Okay, so we're on the latest. It's a problem, but we're gonna fix that afterwards. Okay, so what we're gonna do is make sure that we're building for Skia, and I don't know. So it's using Net 6. So if we want to be building for Net 6, we have to go for the Net Standard 2 target framework. So we're going to be changing that right away. But the problem here is that because that branch is too old, it's likely that I'm going to have a set of other problems. So let's see. So Net Standard 2. I'm going to be opening the wasm version. Not the wasm version. I said the Skia version. So Skia version, and we're going to be building against a specific version of Uno. So let's take that one. Let's see if it works. Just quickly, so we need to override the version. So to do that, we need to go to the cross-target override props file and then uncomment that line. So we set the newer version, and then once we're done, we can build a new version of the whole solution, which is going to override which is going to override the version that is used by my sample application here. Now, very quickly, because I find it very odd, means that we have GitHub Actions that are supposed to be running that are not running, and it's a problem. So we have a WinUI generate branch. And GitHub's being very slow today. Or maybe it is because there are too many of those. We'll see. Okay, so it's building properly. Good. Come on, GitHub. Okay. It fails. Okay, so that may explain why we're having issues here. It says process completed with code 1, but I don't have a way to see the logs here because I'm not logged in. Okay, so we're gonna have to troubleshoot that. By the looks of it, it looks like we broke something. Could be Net 7 related because we made a few changes with Net 7. And it's supposed to be running properly, so we're gonna have to troubleshoot that out. But let's continue with what we have here. Okay, so it failed. Okay, so we have a few additional issues with regards to the fact that we're not running the latest version of the branch, so it kind of breaks up. So probably with fixes that we did in the back. So we're gonna stop here for today, and next week we're gonna be able to troubleshoot that further, unless we have fixed that in the meantime. And we're gonna have fixed the branch for the auto conversion so that we can be on the WinUI targets already and not using the UWP API set instead. Okay, so we know now that in Uno there's a memory leak with regards to removing items from a list view on WebAssembly specifically, or WebAssembly and Skia. So we're gonna have to figure where that comes from, and that's it for today. So I hope to see you next week, and if you're watching the stream, thank you. And until next time, happy coding. Bye for now.